Awesome. Hey, everyone. Welcome to Beyond the Frame. I'm Ryan.
And I'm Mikey.
And today we have AdventureKPR, the founder of kprverse, on the show. Welcome, Adventure. Thanks a ton for coming on the podcast. Glad to have you today.
Thank you, guys.
Awesome. So we like to do a little rapid fire when we get started. So I have a few questions for you. Just hit us with a one-word answer or one-liner, and yeah, let's get it going. Ramen or sushi?
Ramen.
Awesome. Summarize NFT NYC in one word.
I would say connection.
Cool. A NFT treasure hunt, participate or pass?
Participate.
Anumis or Prisma?
Prisma.
Okay. If you could live in one location within the KPR verse, where would it be?
I mean, if you got to pick one place, it's got to be the keep.
NFTs as gifts, thoughtful or impersonable?
Oh no, super thoughtful.
Digiphysical NFTs, intriguing or excessive?
No, intriguing. I think one of the best use cases.
Awesome. What KPR inspired technology would you like to own?
Claymore, like my PFP.
Cool. NFT backed loans, smart or risky?
Smart for the overall space and risky for the individual.
Smash and smart every time. I love it. I will be a proponent for smart. First NFT you ever bought?
Began Punked.
The most recent NFT you purchased?
KPR, obviously.
Obviously. What's the dream? NFT collaborations. What's the dream duo?
Dream duo is Beeple, I would say.
Okay, cool. And if you were to tokenize any personal item as an NFT, what would it be?
Got to say watch. I'm a watch guy. So, yep.
Cool. That's the rapid fire segment. Really appreciate it. Like to have a little fun on the show. And Mikey, passing it off to you.
Thanks for that fun segment, guys. Always appreciate hearing those short answers. Adventure would love to start off with a quick intro on kprverse. I think some of our listeners might not be super familiar with you guys. So if you don't mind just providing like a 1 to 3 minute intro about kprverse, what you guys started with, what you're up to right now, that'd be awesome for our listeners.
Yeah, for sure. So KPR is a mixed reality entertainment project. We're focused on social gaming. One of the first projects focused on social gaming and IP creation, co-IP creation. We're blending physical and virtual worlds, as you guys saw during NFT NYC. And we're offering unique experiences through gamified events, mini games, and IRL expansion. So basically what KPR is it's a meta game and then a series of mini games beneath, all within a world we started building at this point almost 2 years ago. Platforms built around concept of citizenship and passports, which serve as your key to access and participate in various experiences. Passport holders can collect keepers, earn points, engage in recurring virtual and physical events. And the origins of the project are that we started this project, like I said, almost 2 years ago. Really what we wanted to do was build a make-believe world and then make it real. So we started building that world. There's the straight line world, the world that is post-apocalyptic, where there was an event called the Flicker. A lot of humanity perished, some survived with special powers. And then there's like the sub-worlds or the sub-brands, where most people live in the KPR verse. They live, they work, they eat every day. We're a bit different than most world building projects or projects in general in that we're focusing a lot on the sub-brands first, as you guys saw last week. So it's a bit like if Star Wars had started the entire universe with The Mandalorian or something. I feel like, most of us feel that the thing that we engage with most around all these universes, Marvel, Star Wars, et cetera, is not like the straight line story, but it's the sub stories, it's the sub worlds, it's the little interesting and intriguing characters. So that's how we've really kind of started rolling this out, especially IRL with Boone. But obviously we're going to get to the main story eventually. But yeah, that's the kind of quick 30,000 foot.
That's awesome. I think it's very reminiscent of how some characters like Mickey Mouse eventually expanded and mixed with other Disney-based characters such as Minnie Mouse, Goofy, Donald Duck. We see this a lot with the franchises that exist today. Wanted to keep it high level as well. So you mentioned that you started 2 years ago, and then you guys actually launched during the peak of the bear, I would say, around the FTX crash. I'm curious what you think you guys did to really stand out, especially at a time when maybe people weren't so excited about minting things. And also on the flip side, if you were to do the mint again, what would you change about it?
Oh man, great questions. Yeah, we launched into Pico Bear, like into the FTX. I think we minted into when FTX halted withdrawals, and then we revealed into the FTX bankruptcy filing. So yeah, what stood out, the way that people kind of noticed our project was the website. Website won Website of the Year. For those who don't know, we beat out Gucci, Spotify, Netflix, and a bunch of Web2 brands. So go check out the website if you have not. It's kprverse.com. The website, I think, really is what got people's attention. And then the art, Kwa is the artist that is on our team and took us quite a while to find him. The art has a very high level of attention to detail. We released a bunch of different articles on our website about how we kind of processed the art and ultimately like how we decided on trait selection, et cetera. So art, website, and attention to detail. One of the things we wanted to do from the jump on this project was create kind of the highest level UI, UX, website design and art in the space. And we feel like we achieved that. And that fortunately kind of got us minted out despite all the craziness that was going on around FTX. In terms of what we would do differently, leading up to mint specifically, I mean, definitely a few things. I think, we were learning as we went, just like most NFT projects, about how to kind of build interest and engagement in a project prior to mint. With our project, particularly, we have somebody who's, a co-founder in a project who is an attorney. So we were trying to stay also within the regulatory guidelines as it relates to what you could and could not say leading up to mint. So it was particularly challenging in terms of what we could communicate to the broader public. I think if we were to do anything differently, we would probably do a lot more community building up front. We weren't really super versed in, and I think it's still an evolving space, but we weren't super versed in kind of how to find our community prior to mint. So we definitely would do that a little bit earlier, I think. We might, if we had to do it over, mint earlier, kind of in the life cycle of the project. By the time we minted, we'd already been working on the project for a year. We had the art done for quite some time. And obviously we were, most of our work was around completing the website, but maybe we could have minted earlier, especially given the events that happened. So those are some of the things we might do differently.
Awesome. Let's jump into community building really quick. What are some of the challenges that you face while building a community, number one? And then also with NFT NYC this past week, how did you engage with your community there? Was there any sort of like feedback around, really any learnings that you took away just broadly interacting with them?
I mean, a ton. So I think, the community formation of KPR was actually particularly challenged by the events that occurred, right? Everyone was super bearish coming into FTX, and we minted just at a weird time. So it took us a while to kind of find our people and for our people to find us. But we have, really now a very engaged, interesting, active, thoughtful, intelligent community. And they're really taking an active role in shaping kind of not only day by day decisions with the core team, but also like broader directionally giving us feedback, contributing ideas, collaborating with us to kind of move the story in different directions. I think like we the core team are not uniquely positioned to like create interesting storylines or build the world or come up with like interesting ideas or sub brands. Like we're a team of creative people. We're very heavy on obviously UI, UX design. We have good, solid writing, and we're a team that likes to kind of conceptualize and ideate over long periods of time using a variety of different kind of modalities. But we're not unique, right? We're not the only ones who can do that. And especially given the level of involvement of our community, there's so many talented people who have such interesting ideas that's really the primary way we've been kind of getting our community involved, is like thinking about different directions we can take the project in general. I think NFT NYC, first of all, it was just amazing to meet people in person with whom we've been speaking to for the better part of 6 months to a year. That was incredible. And then also, just watching our community members interact with the experiences that we created was so gratifying. I think, the IRL side of this, obviously our first time coming out into IRL and putting on events, and there is just such a massive amount of work that goes into it. There's resources that need to be spun up, both from a economic but also a time perspective. These projects, all of the NFT projects, kind of the do IRL stuff, you are running so many different businesses at the same time, right? For the KPR events that you guys came to, we had basically 2 different restaurants we spun up. We spun up merch. We spun up a drink, an in-world drink called Shine. There was just so many different moving parts, and so to like get to the end of the production of that and then watch our community react to it in a very positive way was so gratifying. And then also to kind of hear the feedback about different directions that we could take the IRL side of this. We really do get like a lot of inspiration and ideation out of the interactions that we have with people in our community.
You mentioned how a lot of these ideas for future roadmap comes from the community. I'm actually curious about your views on IP licensing rights and what they look like from a creator side, because you guys are trying to bring on a lot of creators like Esther Choi, but also the NFT holder side where they are actually contributing ideas. I'm curious how you think about that and what it means in the long run and how that integrates with the entire community.
Yeah, great question. So as it relates to like IP licensing, we're not CCO, so a holder can do literally anything they want with their specific NFT. Obviously, although we have the right to revoke that if they're doing something horrible, like whatever, using it to promote terrorism in a crazy example or something like that. But generally, like the brand, the logo, KPR name, etc., is the project property. An example of that is like you could use your specific Claymore wielding PFP, stick it on a hoodie, and sell that hoodie, right? But you can't manufacture like toy Claymores and sell them. So there's this kind of unique balance between making sure that the project is kind of guided in a direction that we ultimately want it to go, but also giving holders and community members access to actually spin stuff up if they're interested in doing that. By the way, we've had some of that. We haven't had a ton of that. What we've had more is just like, a ton of contribution, both kind of on the individual level and somewhat collectively on the direction of certain aspects of the project. And that is motivated primarily just by, I think, a lot of the members of the community wanting the project to succeed, ultimately wanting the project to grow, to kind of gain more notoriety, recognizability. And that's why they're interested in kind of co-creating alongside us. Obviously, the creator side of this, is a completely different aspect. That's where a lot of the co-IP creation also comes in. And I would say it's quite interesting. So Esther Choi, for those of you who don't know, is our first like public collaboration. Esther is a world famous chef. Been on, Iron Chef, has been on a million different Food Network TV shows with Bobby Flay and others, is very famous for her collaborations with Uncle Roger, and has a chain of restaurants called Mukbar, which is a ramen focused brand. I think she has 11 restaurants across the country with Mukbar. So we had this brand, Boon Ramen, which was a brand that we got a lot of engagement and traction on very, very early on. It's one of the sub brands, as I said earlier. It's like one of the sub stories, sub worlds within KPR. Boon Ramen is like this chain restaurant in the KPR verse. It's like the McDonald's of KPR, right? And it's kind of owned by a shadowy figure who started selling noodles on their bike right around the time of the event, which is basically the apocalypse. And then, post the event, post apocalypse, all of a sudden this noodle restaurant grew into the biggest chain in the world. So obviously there's some questions around how that happened, where the funding came from, et cetera. This is something, that we started telling that story early on and got a ton of feedback on in Discord. People were sending pictures of their, noodle dishes. They were sending videos of themselves making what they called Boon Ramen, et cetera. So we started looking for someone to collaborate with on the brand. And we actually talked to quite a few people in the food space, in the restaurant space. Yes, we had a lot of engagement around Boon Ramen. We had a lot of, new community members kind of submitting videos of them making what they called Boon Ramen. We started looking for someone to collaborate with on Boon Ramen, kind of an IRL and virtual Boon Ramen. And we actually talked to quite a few people in the restaurant space, food creators, chefs, et cetera, and found Esther, obviously, who's at this moment probably one of the world's, if not the world's most famous individual ramen chef. What was amazing about that conversation was that Esther, and this goes for like a lot of the creator partnerships that we're that we're going to embark on. Esther brought a lot to the table from the co-IP creation perspective. First of all, she's familiar with Web3 and NFTs. And second, and most importantly, like she really engaged with the story of Boon Ramen very quickly and had her own ideas for how she might both be represented in our world and also kind of move the story forward, which is really what co-IP creation is, right? Find somebody that organically kind of fits within KPR, find somebody, a creator from one of a number of different verticals that makes sense within the context of our world, and then create with them, right? These are people who are some of the most talented people in the world at making stuff. And so try to kind of harness their powers alongside ours and build the story together somewhat.
Yeah, and how do you find those people generally? Like, how do you curate those type of individuals that you collaborate with? And I know there's like a lot of like celebrity rug pulls. I'm sure a lot of it is just like speaking and getting to know the individuals you're looking to collaborate with. But yeah, well, I guess like what are some of your learnings around that?
Yeah, I mean, okay, so to the question of how we find those different creators, again, like I'm going to use the word organic a lot, but it has to come about organically. It has to come about authentically. We've been approached by, multiple celebrities, multiple companies from a variety of different verticals since we launched this project. Many of whom are, lovely people and amazing companies, but like are not organic within KPR, right? Don't really make sense within the context of our world. Wouldn't fit into our story. Would feel inauthentic and forced to our audience, to our holders, to our community. And so we've, passed on a lot of those potential relationships because we feel like long term, that damages the project. What we're trying to do is take the world that we created, the world that we built, and make it real, right? So the stuff that we kind of put together originally with some help from the community over time, we want a story that makes sense, a world that makes sense, and we want to make that, make that world kind of progress. And the only way to do that is to find partners who really fit within the world in one way or another, fit within the aesthetic, fit within the brand, and then fit within the world or the story. And Esther like checked all those boxes very quickly. But yeah, the only way to do it is to actually have the conversations and to get a feel for what that person, organization, creator, et cetera, is all about, why they're interested in the space, if they actually have an authentic kind of interest in the project itself or co-creating, or if they just want to, hey, can I put out a 10K PFP collection kind of within your world, right? Which is what a lot of people who are not native to the space think this whole thing is. And then kind of, use our best judgment to kind of forge partnerships that will be accretive ultimately to the brand to the IP.
For sure. And the first type of lore you guys focused on was around food and beverages. The first one being sushi and ramen, and then you guys also came out with the Shine drink. There's also that coffee box that you guys announced on Twitter recently. I'm curious why you guys started with food. I mean, it seems to make sense given that you're building out a world, but also, are there any categories that you're actually excited about moving into past just food and beverages? And actually, what are some categories that you want to stay away from for now, given that it doesn't really synthesize with the things that you're building?
Great question. So food is universal. That kind of goes without saying, right? Everybody relates to food, especially good food. It crosses all kind of barriers, cultural, language, kind of every barrier that there is, food crosses, right? We picked like two specific foods at first, in ramen and sushi that pretty much everybody in Web3 loves. Most people kind of in our demographic love both ramen and sushi. And the idea was that the more people you can bring together around a concept, the higher the chance of success, right? So it's also something that we all coalesced around very early as a team, right? We all were talking about early on like what we were eating, and sushi and ramen were the two things we were eating most. So I think food happened like organically, but as we met different people in the space, and ultimately like as we started talking to Esther, especially, we realized kind of how far we could go with that category. Obviously, there's humongous, massive businesses that are just focused around food, right? That's a whole business unto itself. And the interesting thing about the partnership with Esther, which we kind of talked about at our Boon Ramen dinner, but it is an ongoing partnership. It's not just like a one and done thing. She's going to be helping us build our world out on a long-term basis, as our head of food and beverage, is that like there's a lot of access that she has to that world, right? So Shine, people were asking us at the event, both events, Shine, which is in our world, it's like a mild hallucinogenic. It's a drink that powers keepers up. It's something that she was able to kind of really help us out with. She spun it up. She has a relationship with Other Half Brewing, which people who were there and are from kind of the tri-state area know Other Half Brewing. And so she had them produce a one-off beverage for us based on the in-world formula, put our branding on it and got, 500 cans of it for the event, right? So that's stuff that if we were on our own and we were trying to call Other Half, Andrew over at Other Half, I don't know that he would pick the phone up or return the email. But because we have Esther, on our side, there's a lot of credibility that we have and access that we can get to different people in that vertical. So food is definitely a focus. It's not something that's going away anytime soon for our project. We're going to expand on it, lean into it for sure. And then I think the next vertical after that really is gaming. You guys are obviously kind of familiar with how we're building this world out. We have a couple of games in development, one of which is the Ramen Wars, which is our gacha game that we're developing in concert with Esther. And that's going to basically be a loot box, oriented mini game. It's going to be a kind of event-based game. At the end of the event, there will be a live stream where people are watching Esther cook kind of the finalist dishes in front of a panel of celebrity judges. Somebody's ramen will be chosen to win, and that ramen will be called Boon Ramen, both virtually and IRL in Esther's restaurants, Mukbar, around the country. So that's kind of blurring, obviously, the digital and the physical, and also about gaming. We have another game, which I won't talk too much about, which is also in development, which is a bit more extensive from a minigame perspective. So gaming is a vertical we're leaning into very heavily. We're a very seasoned team on the gaming side. Noise War, who's our head of product, is XEA, and ex-Nexon Laffy, who's our designer, is ex-Nintendo. Gaming is definitely a vertical we're going to pursue. And then what goes better with kind of food and gaming than music, right? So, we have been a fairly music-focused project from the jump. I think what a lot of people enjoyed about our website was beyond kind of the parallax and the visual effects, as well as the art, was the music that we added to it. So I think music is probably the vertical after that we're going to explore. A lot of different ways to explore it, obviously, especially given all the stuff that's going on right now. So music is probably that next one. And then verticals that we would stay away from. I think just in general, as I kind of mentioned before, we're staying away from engaging with either creators or brands that just want to be there for the sake of being there. That want to drop collection after collection of something that's kind of inorganic to KPR. Aside from that, I think we're fairly wide open, but we want to execute on the ones that we have in front of us first, which are pretty significant.
I think the three verticals of food and gaming and music are definitely universal bound, right? There's no language barrier there. It's loved by everyone. So definitely can see the synthesis on all three. I'm also curious, you mentioned that people will be able to participate IRL and virtually. There's this interactive experience. Holders will also get records and badges as part of completing these challenges. How do you think about creating a balance between rewarding diehard fans who might accrue 100 special badges and attend every single event, but also reward casual citizens as well that might only have one or two, or just trying to participate on the side? Because there's a balance that needs to be created. And I think there's a lot of projects out there that might actually be struggling with this concept.
100%. I mean, we're doing that. And so we have, as I kind of mentioned earlier, the citizenship system where you can get your KPR passport. If you have a PFP on the passport, you can get points, rewards, and badges. And that's kind of the way you can navigate our world. And the way we're thinking about it is basically building a couple of verticals within one. So as an example, for the game we're building with Esther, the Ramen Wars, we're thinking about how to engage with Web3 and NFT participants, obviously very heavily. But we also kind of need to build a silo for her fans, right? For Web2 participants who don't necessarily have a MetaMask and have no interest in necessarily NFTs or Web3. So how do we do that, right? So that really is like almost the core question. Like you have people who are diehard users, and then you have people who are completely casual. And in some cases, with the stuff that we're doing, they might be, completely unrelated to Web3 or crypto in any way. So how do you engage with them? And obviously it's a core question for the entire space. What we're doing, as an example, with the Ramen Wars is we're creating a free-to-play, very basic interface that abstracts away a lot of the Web3 side of it. So it abstracts away MetaMask, abstracts away kind of even like some of the NFT side of it, so that people who are not in the space can play, get a sense of how the world works and what's going on in the space, can get the ability to participate as a fan of Esther, not necessarily understanding what KPR is at first, potentially. So in a very casual way, they can interact and engage with our brand and our project. And then ultimately your hope is to win them over, or at least a small percentage of them even over, to become kind of more engaged users, holders, community members for KPR. So we're thinking similarly about how we're building out citizenship, in as much as we can have people who don't participate that often, but when they come to, let's say, an IRL event, they can get something that feels special, right? They get a badge that feels like it's one of a kind, because it is. They potentially get a piece of merch or a physical item, which feels very special to them, and that can stand as a one-off experience that they'll always remember, that they'll have very good feelings about, and ultimately that they feel rewarded for participating in, without being a kind of a core, everyday user. So it's definitely a challenge. It's something I think that we all have to focus on if we want to have the space expand. and it's something we're focused on every day.
Awesome. Adventure, we appreciate you having you here today. One last question to close it out. And given the last answer, it sounds like it may be a tricky question. But how can, I guess, let's just narrow it down. How can Web3 native users participate in some of the ongoing projects and initiatives that you guys have going on right now?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I would suggest, obviously, Twitter, Discord. They should definitely come to our Discord, which is on our website. They should, first of all, everyone should take a look at our website, kprverse.com. My kind of best suggestion for getting a sense of what we're doing is to buy a KPR PFP. First of all, everyone should do that. And then set up a citizenship profile. And I think if you do that, if you buy the PFP and then you go get a passport, you will get a sense for kind of the level of UI UX that we're trying to bring to the space, and you'll get a better idea of how we're trying to build this world out.
Awesome. Everyone, go follow kprverse at kprverse and give Adventure a follow as well at his Twitter at adventure_KPR. Thanks, everyone, and thanks, Adventure.
Thank you guys so much.